Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm who was it again? Lee Camp. Lee Camp. That's who I am. Thanks for being here. I have another. It's an okay show. No, seriously, a huge show, big show. Got a big guest today. Someone I consider a goddamn hero. He's the journalist that about half the time that you see a clip of one of the journalists in the press corps actually asking a real question, and the State Department spokesperson or whoever the spokesperson is for the Biden administration, or before that the Trump administration, gets uncomfortable, and they're like and they really don't like that they're talking to this journalist, and the journalist keeps asking them questions that they don't want to answer. It's about half the time it's this guy, Sam Husseini. My interview with him coming up in just a few minutes, and I'm going to talk to him about, how he harasses our lying, parasitic government officials. I'm going to talk to him about that, but I'm also going to talk to him about a voter movement that he is spearheading. I love the idea of, and I know whatever area you're coming from, whether you're voting green, whether you are one of the few people that watch this show that are going to hold your nose and vote Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, wherever you're coming from, whether you're voting Claudia de la Cruz or Cornel West, this applies to all of you, and you'll see why in just a few minutes. But I wanted to start off, and also later I have a big announcement. Also later, I am going to go through Alan McLeod's awesome expose on how the CIA has neutralized rap music. Really fascinating deep dive by the always amazing Alan McLeod. All that's coming up. So why would you not stay tuned in for this hour? You'd be out of your goddamn mind. Okay, but I wanted to start off before I bring in my interview with Sam Husseini. I wanted to show just a couple of his greatest hits, just to remind you what a goddamn hero this guy is. And so let's just dive into it. This is him for those of you listening to the podcast. This is him speaking to the spokesperson for the State Department, I believe, and about whether they have any respect for the ICC, the International Criminal Court, and why they ignore it. Of course, the ICC, you guys are well aware, has put out arrest warrants for Netanyahu and other Israeli officials. And anyway, here he is.
Will the State Department finally support International Criminal Court mechanisms in international law regarding Israel? If not, why not?
We, of course, remain engaged with the ICC through a number of mechanisms. We believe that there are a number of avenues for holding those accountable for atrocities, especially in the context of Russia and Ukraine. But I've not seen these comments, so I don't have anything additional to offer on that.
But the State Department continues to not.
It's just, there's lots of avenues. There's things, words. I'm saying words right now. Rhubarb, and now, next question.
Want the ICC to be implemented regarding Israel?
On the matter of Israel and the Palestinian Authority, you saw me speak quite clearly to Saeed's question about our desire that both sides not take steps that are going to incite tensions and take us further away from a negotiated two-state solution. We've been quite...
Taking steps to incite tensions is one of the most delicate ways to say Israel's committing genocide. Both sides should not incite tensions. It's funny how genocide tends to incite tension. It really does. People, for some odd reason, unclear as to why or why not, people seem to they just get their panties in a twist when there's a genocide being committed. And I don't know why that is.
Clear about that consistently.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, but you have refused to apply the ICC over the years to Israel.
I just don't have anything additional to offer on this.
I don't know what the reason for that is. You've stated reasons before, but you're unwilling to state them now.
Your colleague has had her hand up.
I've had my hand up.
Your colleague's had her hand up. Oh, They cannot. They are incapable of avoiding. I mean, of actually answering these questions. So they do these pathetic attempts at avoiding them. Anyway, here's another one. This goes back a little farther, talking about Julian Assange, the collateral murder video, in which the U.S., as you guys well know, it was revealed by Assange WikiLeaks that the U.S. was murdering, and it was videotaped, murdering journalists and innocent civilians. And anyway, here is Sam Husseini again.
U.S. military mowing down Reuters reporters, workers in Iraq. Reuters repeatedly asked the U.S. government to disclose such information about those killings, and the U.S. government repeatedly refused to do so. Only then did we know what happened, that the U.S. helicopter gunship mowed down these Reuters workers through the collateral murder video. Are you saying that disclosure of such criminality by the U.S. government impinges U.S. national security?
I was answering a question about Mr. Assange.
Yeah.
I was not offering an assessment on anything else.
But you said that WikiLeaks damaged U.S. national security. Did it do so by exposing U.S. criminality?
I'm not going to parse or get into specifics. What I will just reiterate again is that Mr. Assange has been charged with criminal conduct for his role in the largest compromise of classified information in our nation's history. That compromise has seriously harmed U.S. national security to the benefit of our adversaries.
But you can't be specific.
I don't have anything else to add on this.
Just another dimension to this is that, of course, you're going after the U.S. government, the DOJ, is going after Assange because of the disclosures pertaining to Iraq and Cablegate and so on. This is separate from the whole Russia Gate situation. I don't know if you're familiar with the recent report by James Bamford in The Nation. He's coming out with a book. He's a cybersecurity expert, written a book about the NSA. Piece is entitled Trump's Campaign's Collusion with Israel. Subtitle, While U.S. media fixated on Russian interference in the 2016 election, an Israeli secret agent's campaign to influence the outcome went unreported.
So I'm going to stop there because he doesn't, as big surprise, the State Department goon does not answer it. The familiar from What We Do in the Shadows, who always wanted to be a vampire, but just hasn't gotten there yet. But he doesn't answer the question. But Sam's asking about this report about Israeli influence of U.S. elections. Oh, no, it's Russia. Oh, Israel's actually influencing us. That doesn't matter. Anyway, I want to bring you one more before I get to my interview with Sam Husseini. This is the most recent one. This is Sam at the UN just a couple of days ago. And this time he is asking a question of the Israeli ambassador. So let's watch this one.
Our position regarding Lebanon has always been very clear. We would prefer a diplomatic solution. We are entirely focused on achieving our objectives, which in the north is the return of our displaced citizens who have become refugees in their own country, back to their homes, back to their schools, back to their families. The suffering is always on our mind. If diplomacy fails to return our residents to their homes, then we will use all means at our disposal in accordance with international law to achieve our aims. And we will continue to target the terrorists. But all of this can stop immediately. Once Hezbollah will stop firing missiles and rockets into our civilian communities, there will be no cycle of violence in the region.
Hezbollah says they'll stop if you do a ceasefire in Gaza. So if you really care about the people in the north, why don't you do that?
The linkage that Iran decided to do between Hezbollah and Hamas, holding the people of Lebanon hostage, that's something which I'm not familiar with. How can you do that?
Holding the people of Lebanon hostage, as if this absolute viper parasite cares about the people of Lebanon. They literally, Israel just obliterated sorry, who knows how many people in Lebanon in order to kill a couple leaders. I'm going to keep playing this rather than keep coughing on the mic. So let's keep going.
So everyone
Excuse
should
me, let
just,
me answer
you
your
asked me a
question.
question. You asked me a
No, I'm
question.
answering your question.
You asked me a question.
I'm
So,
answering- no, I'm not-
so the world should just step
I'm not here
aside
to-
as
I'm
you
not
do
here
all
to
this
listen-
carnage.
I'm not here to
The
listen
world
to
should
your
just
opinion.
step aside as you commit
I'm not here
genocide.
to listen to your
You
opinion.
asked me a question.
You ask a question, you get an answer. The linkage that the Iranian regime did between Hezbollah and Hamas.
So obviously he's not going to answer, but this, you know, Sam, of course, has a great point there, which is you just expect the whole world to stand by while you commit this gross carnage. We're just, the whole world is supposed to go, yeah, Israel, do whatever you want, bomb whoever you want, kill however many innocent civilians you want. Just go ahead. Anyway, that was just a couple of days ago at the UN. That is, you know, a few days before that was when Netanyahu gave his speech to the UN. Or a day before that, in which many people walked out, many delegates walked out rather than listen to that genocidal maniac speak. So that was just a few of some of the greatest hits of Sam Husseini. So without further ado, actually, with just a second of further ado, I just wanted to remind you guys that after this interview, I'm going to have another segment for you on how the CIA neutralized rap music and made it not actually a revolutionary art form as much anymore. And I'm also going to bring you a special announcement. I have a special segment for those of you on locals today. I got a lot coming up. So now, without further ado, here is my interview with just taped a few hours ago with Sam Husseini. Hello, Sam. Thank you for joining me.
Great to be with you, Lee. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm a huge fan of your work. Always have been. You're one of the few, and we just saw a clip from the UN. You were one of the few, if not the only one, to actually press the Israeli ambassador about the carnage that Israel is committing, both in Lebanon and in Gaza. And you've done a tremendous job of also trying to hold U.S. officials accountable at these press conferences they give. Most people can tell this is kind of kabuki theater. I mean, these people are lying to our faces. They're many of them are war criminals or war criminal adjacent, and they're lying to us. Why is it important for you and for all of us that you are there pressing them, trying to hold accountable when it does seem to be some form of theater?
I think I do it to try to expose it further and to make it evident to more and more people that they don't have honest answers to simple, direct questions. From does Israel have nuclear weapons to why, if Israel's concerned about people in the north, why don't they cut a deal and stop the carnage in Gaza, and then they wouldn't be receiving any bombing and wouldn't have to be bombing tons of other people. So I'm trying to make it explicit for people who might be on the fence, might not be awake, might not really understand what's going on.
And without asking you to speak for any individual colleague of yours, why is it that it seems like so many of your fellow reporters, journalists are not willing, at least not willing, to push them as far as you do?
Yeah, well, I mean, I get singled out for exclusion because of what I do. I was going to the State Department pretty regularly, and they try to avoid me like hell. But the last month or two, they've totally, will,
Oh, really?
not, they'll go reporter, jump over Sam, reporter. And, when I say follow up, that's usually respected. When I'm trying to follow up on a direct line of questioning from somebody else, that's ignored, and I still try to elbow my way in. But it's a hard slog. So it's a lot of journalism is effectively access journalism, and if you don't either play ball or at least play nice with them, they'll do everything they can to ice you out.
Yeah, that makes sense. But so let's move on to the main reason I wanted to speak to you right now, which is a new project you've been working on centering around this upcoming presidential clown show. It's called Vote Pact, and it's for all those millions of Americans, and I am certain it is millions, who plan to hold their nose and vote for either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, and they're not happy about it. Many of them may view both those people as genocide perpetrators, genocide facilitators. And you have a way that those voters can build third parties while not, quote unquote, hurting. That's what we're told, hurting those candidates, hurting Kamala or Donald in their chances of winning. So explain what Vote Pact is.
That two people, instead of canceling each other out, one of them voting for Harris and one of them voting for Trump, should pair up and both vote for non-genocidal candidates that more, most closely reflect their own values. So you're siphoning off votes in pairs from Trump and Harris, people pairing up. I've been advocating that people do this with somebody that they know and trust from their life. But there is a web page called breaktheduopoly.com, which is pairing people up on the internet, so that we're not stuck in this perpetual cycle of lesser evil voting that's consumed, your entire life, my entire life, pretty much. It's been this constant dynamic, and then people pretend to be surprised that the two major parties in many ways get worse and worse. Well, of course they're going to get worse and worse because they treat voters like serfs instead of citizens. They have no reason really to listen to their voters because they know that they got to get behind. So long as they feel like the voters got to get behind one or another arm of the duopoly. So this is a super strategic way of voting. Instead of making elections or rallying around one genocidal candidate or another, to get people to break out of it. And I think it's a majority of the American public that is this way, that wants out of the establishment but is trapped by it.
Yeah, and I think it is pretty brilliant. I think it's a really good idea because there are so many people that I think most of the people probably voting for Kamala Harris who don't like her, don't really want her really to be president. They just don't want Donald Trump. I think most of them have someone in their life that they, like you said, know and trust, who is doing the same thing with Donald Trump. And they could do exactly what you're saying. Subtract both their votes, from one from Kamala, one from Trump, and vote third party. They're not harming the proportion of winning or losing that either of those candidates will get. And they're bolstering third parties. In your view, why, other than just the problems with the two main corporate candidates you just listed, why is it important to build those third parties?
I mean, like it or not, voting is still the, emblematic thing that people do in a so-called democracy. So it's an important way for the public to register its disgust with the establishment. So every pairing that can happen here is valuable in and of itself, and it could build to a snowball effect. That is, if you start to get local assemblymen to do it, other major figures, then if it catches on with more and more people online, and then some celebrities start doing it, like John Cusack and Clint Eastwood, I don't know, if people start doing it, then it can become a major force, and it helps people to break out, because you get these decent movements in non-election years, and then the establishment kind of kills them off with an election, because it forces everyone to get back into their partisan boxes, and it affects their thinking. Some people are honest with themselves. Kamala Harris is genocidal maniac, but I gotta vote for her because I don't like Trump. Some people say that, but a lot of people, start kicking in with their rationalizations, and like, no, she'll be decent, or Trump deep down, wants to stop the wars and sock it to the deep state. They start to believe some of the rhetoric coming from these establishment candidates instead of seeing things clear-eyed, because they feel like they gotta rationalize in some way voting for one or the other. So it also, I think, helps, would help get more people to be more clear in their thought and analysis if they weren't effectively capitulating by their vote.
Yeah, and if this were successful and it got, just a few million people or a few, even hundreds of thousands to vote for, could be Green Party, could be Libertarian, there are some others as well. It could have important implications for these third parties and for third party efforts in general, in that Green Party gets to 5% and all of a sudden they're on the ballot without having to fight as hard every time, and federal funding and things like that. So there are ramifications to a bunch of people voting third party, even if that third party candidate does not win the presidency.
Yeah, absolutely. There are structural reasons for it. And people can use this basically any way they want to back any candidate. It can be, like you say, the Green Party, Libertarian, others as well. I don't view any of them as ideal from my personal point of view, but I think they're clearly, virtually all of them, better than the two establishment parties. So I think it's the smart thing to do if you're going to spend any time on this election. This is the thing to do.
And over at votepack.org, I noticed you also you write articles, and you've written about U.S. polling, across the country, asking who's going to win the election, and you give a pretty convincing argument that the polling about this election is incorrect in various ways. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. It's another way of putting people into these partisan boxes. The electoral system puts them into these partisan boxes. The entire media establishment, through CNN and MSNBC on one side and Fox on the other, puts them into these partisan boxes. And the polling does the same, because the way that virtually all of the polling is done, they don't say, who do you want to be president? They say, if the election were held today, which of the following would you vote for? And half the time they don't even list third-party candidates.
Right.
But even if they do, the phrasing of the question puts them in a, if the election were held today. So you could have a majority of the American public for a third-party candidate, and we wouldn't know it, because the public is not meaningfully asked. They're not asked, who do you want to be president? I think they should even ask a better question than that. They should ask a question like, there is a four-way tie between Trump, Harris, Stein, the Green Party candidate, Oliver, the Libertarian Party candidate. You are the tiebreaker. Who do you vote for? That gets to actual voter preference, so that they're not stuck in this mind game as to who they think is going to win, and trying to be a pundit about it and so on. It's getting at what the public actually wants. And there are so many mechanisms by the establishment, including polling, that effectively attempt to hide what the public wants.
Right. That's really interesting. It's an aspect I hadn't quite thought of, that when you ask someone, if the election were tomorrow, who are you voting for? Well, people quickly make the calculation in their mind of, well, there's only two that have a chance. So
correct. And that's how they want to box you in. They want to box you, and then they want to report it through their big media outlets as a public opinion poll. It's not a public opinion poll. It has nothing to do with what the opinion of the public is. It's forcing them into a straitjacket as to what the strategic decision they should make under the stringent conditions that you put on them. So it's another level of deceit.
Yeah. You've also written about ranked choice voting. I've done segments on that before, but it's been a while. Can you explain ranked choice?
Well, ranked choice voting, and I actually, on my blog, when I got writings about VotePact, in one of the articles, I actually set up a poll to do ranked choice voting, where you would rank candidates 1, 2, 3, 4. So instead of just pulling, it's a voting reform that lots of people have advocated over the years, to say that would be a superior method of voting because it gets over the spoiler problem. So people could rank, Green Party, then Libertarian, then Democratic Party, then Republican, or whatever they want. They could actually rank their preferences. So Vote Pact is kind of do-it-yourself ranked choice voting. It's a way of, because you're making a deal, you're pairing up with someone you know and trust, and therefore you're sort of simulating what ranked choice voting is. But it's something you can do right now. Again, people have been advocating ranked choice voting for as long as I've been politically active, and some municipalities and I think one state have done it, but it really hasn't gotten too far because the duopoly doesn't want it. They're not going to sign their own death warrant, uh, you know. So people have got to do it themselves, and Vote Pact is the way of doing it yourself. This could be a revolutionary tactic, and it can be started by anybody. And I want to know, people, if there's an activist listening to this, maybe it's somebody who's already planning on voting for a third party candidate. But if they start pairing people up, and maybe people who are coming to them saying, why are you voting for third party? They can't, well, why are you voting for a genocidal candidate? Because the other genocidal candidate is worse. Okay, well, I got a friend who's on the other side and I'm going to pair you two up. And then, and then pair more. And then they write an article together. And then other people start, joining in the fray. This is literally a revolution waiting to happen that anybody who's enterprising can really start. I've developed the idea. I've written how this can happen. It hasn't caught fire yet. It is past ripe to catch fire, and I'm betting that there's somebody out there who can make this happen.
I love it. And it basically you're saying that because I know a lot of my viewers are voting third party no matter what. They view supporting genocide as a red line for them. So rather than hearing this and going, oh, well, that's not me, I wasn't going to vote for Kamala or Trump, you're saying many of them can be organizers and they can start finding, which is not tough, to find people voting for Kamala or Trump who don't like them and are willing to go through Vote Pact and or go the way of Vote Pact and vote for a third party in coordination with someone who is going to do the same. Yeah.
Absolutely. They could even, start having meetups and stuff like that and pairing people up, doing little ceremonies to get people together to do this. And I'd love to see articles or videos that people make saying, okay, we've been debating partners forever and a day, and now we're going to pair up and we're both going to do this. And then that catches fire and kaboom. It's the end of the lesser evil, canard that's boxed so many people in, and we're onto a good step in this political process, as demented as it is.
I also love it because whoever wins the presidency, if this were to catch fire and you have millions of people fewer voting for them, even though it doesn't change the results, and it would say something about the mandate that this pro-genocide candidate has when they get in the office.
Absolutely. There's no downside to this. There's no downside to this.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And if they're willing to call on you, keep pressing these goons as they lie to the entire world. Thank you for all your work. And the website again is votepact, PACT.org, right?
That's right. Thank you so much, Lee.
Absolutely. There it is, my interview with Sam Husseini. Hope you appreciated that. He is a legend, but I also love this idea. Vote Pact here. I can put it on the screen now. That here is votepact.org, and the website basically just explains it. And for those of you joining late and things, I'll just go through it real quick here. Basically, you just, if you are, and I know a lot of you are not already. I'm not. Like, for example, sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. For example, I am planning on voting third party. I do have no interest in voting for one of these two genocidal maniacs, be it Kamala Harris or Donald Trump or Joe Biden or what have you. But that is not a lot of America. There is a lot of America. Many of them are not many of them. Some of them are my family members. Some of them are people I'm friends with who plan to hold their nose and go, well, at the end of the day, you just got to vote for Kamala. What choice do you have? I hate Donald Trump. Or the reverse. Oh, what choice? You got to vote for Donald Trump. For Donald Trump because you just got to stop Kamala. Like that, that sentiment is rife across this country. People holding their nose with like they've been working on their arm strength, working on the forearms to be able to hold the nose enough that they can actually stomach the stench of bullshit as they pull the lever for either Kamala or Donald. Those people are across this country. If you are one of them or you know one of them, then if you're one of them, you could switch with someone else who's going to do the reverse. So you're going to hold your nose and vote Kamala. You find someone who's going to hold their nose and vote Trump. And you say, let's both of us vote third party. We make a pact that the two of us vote third party. And therefore, you are not changing the chances of winning or losing of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Nothing changes except third parties get a lot more votes. And the end result, it does not change whether Kamala or Donald win this clown show. And to me, it's, again, I am not going to be one of those holding my nose and voting Kamala or Trump. But to those who are, this is a great way to give more votes to third parties. And as I mentioned on that interview with Sam, even if the third party doesn't win the presidency, which unfortunately they won't, because it's rigged. It's rigged in so many ways. But that doesn't mean don't support them. I've had Jill Stein on this show. I just had Butch Ware, her VP, on this show a week ago. I've had Claudia De La Cruz on here. I've had her VP on here. I've had Cornel West. I've had his VP on here. They have all been on this show, and I support all. I think they're all doing great work. The vast majority of the time. You can disagree with one stance here or there, but vast majority of the time doing great work. And this would help all of them to have third parties do better, to decrease the number of votes going to these two genocidal maniacs. And yet, at the end of the day, you're not changing whether Kamala or Trump wins. Now, for me, I'm fine with changing whether Kamala or Trump wins because they're both shit shows. But I know that a lot of Americans are not like that. I know that most of America is going to vote. If they're going to vote for either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, because that's what they've been told are the two options that matter. That's what they've been told for their entire lives is, oh, these are the only two parties that matter, etc. But this votepact.org changes the equation. And there's a lot of people out there. And I'd love to, as Sam said, I'd love to see this catch fire. It would be, if the Green Party, let's say, got 100,000 extra votes because of people doing vote pact. And again, it wouldn't change the Kamala-Donald dynamic. It would just decrease their number of votes and switch it over to, say, the Green Party or others. If they got hundreds of thousands more votes, it would be very important. It would show that third parties are something to have to actually face, that there's something to deal with, that they can have an impact. And if it were to really catch fire and it gets to be millions of people, now you're talking about third parties automatically on the ballot for the next election. You're talking about matching funds. You're talking about the media be forced to cover them. It's just the ramifications keep increasing as the numbers go up. IndieB over on Rumble, rumble.com/Lee Camp says, for this to work, the person you pair up with has to be in the same state with you, right? I mean, I guess. Here's the thing, though. If it's not a swing state, it wouldn't matter anyway. So maybe if you're in a swing state, I suppose you could make that argument that I'm in, let's say I'm in Florida or I don't even know if that's a swing state this time around, but I'm in Pennsylvania and you're in Wyoming. So I matter and you don't, which again is the garbageness, which is a new word that I just created. It's the garbageosity of our system. So yes, if I suppose if you were in a swing state and the other person is not in a swing state, then okay, that matters differently. But most people are not in swing states. Also, you could team up with someone who's in another swing state, maybe. I don't know. But the point is, most people are not in swing states anyway. So yeah, a lot of people would be in the same state, but a lot of people are going to be in the same state because a lot of people are going to be doing this with a family member that they live near, a friend that they see every day. That's probably the vast majority of people who are going to end up making this deal. And I would love it if you guys would just share the idea around, help it grow a little. You know, I understand that not everybody's in the position that they're going to be out on a street corner handing out votepack.org stuff to promote it, but talk to a friend. If you know a friend who's like, yeah, I'm voting for Trump. I don't really like him much, but you got to stop those Marxists because Trump has told them that Kamala's a Marxist. Oh God, how stupid is this stuff? If you know someone like that, then, you know, pair them up with, tell them this idea and tell them to talk to their other friend who's like, you got to vote for Kamala because Trump has a funny spray tan. By the way, he does have a funny spray tan. So anyway, I like this idea because I like stirring things up. I like pissing people off, especially the ruling elite. And this would do both. And again, I see a lot of you in the chat saying, you know, I'm voting Jill Stein. Awesome. Some of you in the chat saying Cornel West. I know there's Claudia De La Cruz fans out there. I know there are libertarian fans out there. And that's all awesome. But you can also support this. It doesn't decrease your impact. It doesn't decrease your support for, let's say, you know, Jill Stein or someone. And in fact, increases the chances that they'll do a little better. So I'm going to keep mentioning this. Also, of course, there's Yard Rock, yardrock2024.com. Most of you know I'm the campaign manager for a rock that I found in my front yard. Is running for office. And go if you check out his stances, by the way, yardrock2024.com, you're going to love everything he stands for. Go just say it, check it out. Anyway, I'm going to keep mentioning votepack.org until the election because fuck this shit show. Fuck the goddamn military industrial complex. And let's wreak some havoc. And trying to convince someone, it is like trying to push waves back at the beach. Trying to convince someone who is dead set on, I have to stop Donald Trump, and trying to convince them, yeah, but you shouldn't be voting for either genocidal maniac. It is like you can do it a little. You can have that impact over the 3 years before the goddamn election, but when you're a month from the election, that kind of stuff is set. I have not met anyone who at this point is like, you know, I'm deciding between the candidates that are out there as to who is the best for me. I don't see that going on very much. Okay. So that's votepack.org. Check it out. All right, now I want to do a bit of a deep dive. Actually, it's, you know, I'm going to add my commentary, but it's Alan McLeod's deep dive into how the CIA has stopped or neutralized rap music, the influence, the revolutionary influence of rap music. Thank you, Brent, for the donation, supporting the show, solidarity. Brent says, I just had a loved one pass, somebody that got to live a full life, and it was painful. Thinking about those in Palestine, Lebanon, of every age that have lost everything. Keep up the good fight. Beautifully said, Brent. I'm sorry you've lost someone. Yes, but even someone who lives a full life, it never makes it easy. And thank you for supporting the show as well. Okay. So before I get to that, how the CIA neutralized rap music, two things real quick. One is, after that, I'm bringing a special segment to those of you over at leecamp.net, my locals page, special segment just for you, my own personal deep dive into the dark history of Elon Musk, his origin story, the truth behind it, and its comedy, as well as a deep dive into the dark truth of Elon Musk. And that's just for members at leecamp.net, which is my locals page. If you aren't, you could sign up right now and go and watch the live stream over there, and you'll get the special segment. And it's a whopping $6 a month if you want to sign up over at leecamp.net. Scroll down to become a subscriber. Okay, the second thing, and this is the first time I'm announcing this. Oh, thank you, Maria, another donation. Maria says, if Dr. West isn't with a party, does him getting 5% even help anything as far as furthering a movement? Any future benefit for the next cycle? I actually do not know the answer to that. My guess would be no. If he doesn't have a party and he gets 5%, I don't think it would be different than him getting 4% or 6% or like, as far as I know. But if someone has a better answer than that, feel free to put it in the chat. And thank you, Maria, so much for supporting the show as well. Okay, so first time I'm announcing this, 2 months from now, a little over 2 months from now, I will have my next live Zoom comedy event. Many of you may know I've done, 4 of these or 6? I can't even remember anymore. I think 4. I've done 4 of these before. And everybody seemed to love them. I always offer to give you your money back if you dislike the Zoom comedy event, and no one's ever asked for their $5 back. So it seems to be something people really enjoy. I also love that I get to speak to all of you around the world, wherever you are. And I do a full hour of comedy. I also have special guests. I am now actually going to reveal that these special guests, if everything stays, sometimes people's schedules change, but are almost definitely going to be, they've already confirmed, are going to be John F. O'Donnell from Redacted Tonight, Naomi Caravani from Redacted Tonight, and Eleanor Goldfield from Common Censored, among other things. So awesome special guests, and they're going to be performing as well. And all of this is $5, but I'm giving you a early bird discount. So if you want $1 off of the $5, I'll tell you, let's see in just a second how to do that, but I wanted to throw this on the screen first. LeeCamp.simpletix.com. That's LeeCamp.simpletix.com. There's 2 dates, December 11th, which is Wednesday, and Saturday, December 14th. I do one show at a time that is better for people in like London and Europe and stuff. Let's see, there's the event. And I do a second show that is better for the United States, but obviously you can attend either if the time works for you. Wednesday, December 11th will be at 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. London time. Saturday, December 14th will be at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific time. And like I said, awesome special guests, John F. O'Donnell, Naomi Caravani from Redacted Tonight. I'll be doing a full hour of comedy. A lot of it'll be new. Some of it I will have done maybe as a special segment before, but that means that most of you never saw those. So even the stuff that I maybe have talked about before, most of you will not have seen it before. Also, it always changes a little, things like that. But plenty of new stuff. It's a really fun evening. And here's how to get $1 off so that the cost would be a whopping $4 is when you go to LeeCamp.simpletix.com and you go to checkout, use the promo code EARLYBIRD, all caps, one word. And that early bird special will only last for 2 weeks. So 2 weeks from now, you cannot get the early bird discount. But that's LeeCamp.simpletix.com. And if you use the early bird discount, it'll be a whopping $4 to get a ticket to this Zoom event. And some of them did sell out. And some of them got close to selling out. The last ones I did. So limited number of tickets. And I hope you can come hang out with me and Naomi and John. And it's a damn good time. So everyone's enjoyed it. The past ones I did. Like I said, if you have to attend the show and hate the show to get your money back. That's the only way you get your money back. You cannot skip the show and get your money back because I have to know how many people are attending and everything. But if you come to the show and you go, I did not have fun, I will give you your $4 back or your $5 back afterwards. Okay, folks, that's at LeeCamp.simpletix.com. So now let's get to, this is a great article by Alan McLeod. Always like his work. He used to be my colleague at Mint Press when I was there for a year. And so just recently, legendary rapper and activist Chuck D, you know Chuck D from Public Enemy, just recently he appeared at the White House apparently earlier this summer announcing he was joining forces with YouTube and with Antony Blinken's State Department to become one of Washington's, quote, global music ambassadors, unquote. A role directly modeled on Washington's Cold War era efforts to use the arts to inspire US-backed regime change in Eastern Europe and to use musical tours as covers that the CIA could use to assassinate foreign leaders. That's what they did back during the Cold War. And now they're basically trying to do it again. And Chuck D, we'll get more into this later, but he was kind of known, and actually up till recently continued to be known, as someone who was fighting for revolution, as someone who was inspired by Malcolm X, inspired by Black Panthers. And this guy is a badass through the years. And here he is smiling at the White House next to our genocidal Secretary of State. It is an unbelievable reversal and capturing of the few rappers who truly stood for something revolutionary. Continue from Alan McLeod's article, among the crowd of artists that included, and I'll be honest, I am fallen out of pop music. I don't know half these names. I know like the first 2 or 3 or something. Included Herbie Hancock, Armani White, Breland, Dennis Graves, Grace Bowers, Jelly Roll, I've heard of him, Justin Tranter. I know, I'm pathetic. Kane Brown, Lainey Wilson, and Teddy Swims. The Public Enemy frontman, I do know Public Enemy, was center stage, standing directly on Blinken's right-hand side, and was the first artist in the room mentioned by the Secretary of the State, earning a round of applause from journalists and dignitaries. And he said, quote, "I would like to thank everybody in the State Department and also YouTube for having me being invited to be a U.S. Global Music Ambassador." And by the way, this is how you get not suppressed by YouTube. Right now, I have like 1/10 or less of the, it's actually less. It's more like 1/20th of the people that would normally watch my live streams are right now watching on YouTube because I am aggressively suppressed. Now, if you do like Chuck D and you sign up with YouTube as the ambassador, then you aren't suppressed. The rapper and writer of such songs as Fight the Power and Rebel Without a Cause used both the aesthetics and message of the Black Panther Party in his performances. It was seen as Malcolm X with a microphone, which is an odd thing to say, because didn't Malcolm X have a microphone a lot of the time? I feel like he did. So it wasn't Malcolm X with a microphone? I'm just saying, look, I'm just asking questions. Can't get mad at me for asking questions. He lists the Panthers and Malcolm X as influences during his formative years. Quote, I was in the Black Panther lunch program, he told the Historically podcast. Thus, for an artist to go from unapologetically demanding Black power to now enthusiastically supporting state power is a bitter pill to swallow for millions of fans. Throughout the press conference announcing the project's inauguration, Blinken and YouTube's global music head. So I've never seen this name before, Lyor. And are we not supposed to call him Liar? Liar Cohen? Okay, I'm calling him Liar. I don't care how he pronounces it. And, you know, he's the head of YouTube, so he probably is a liar. YouTube's global music head, Liar Cohen, it's probably Lior. Anyway, constantly mentioned the CIA's secret Cold War program to use music and the arts as weapons for regime change. So they're not running. The State Department and this program is not running from what they were during the Cold War. They're touting it. They're saying, look at all the good we did they fucking assassinated people. And the music was used as an in to get information for assassinations. Like, why would you sign up to be a part of this? How soulless do you have to become to sign up to be a part of this? Cohen explained that YouTube was teaming up with the State Department to help them, quote, leverage global events. Quote, we will utilize major international gatherings to inspire action, meaning inspiring coups. What kinds of actions the State Department is interested in fomenting was not stated at the event, but it's not difficult to figure out. The CIA became a principal driver of both high and low culture across the globe. This is back during the Cold War, operating through its front organization, the Congress for Cultural Freedom. The CIA funded and promoted artists, writers, musicians, and intellectuals who advanced U.S. government interests in dozens of countries worldwide. At the height of its influence, the CIA published highly influential magazines, built up a book publishing empire promoting anti-communist literature, raised money for the production of hit movies, like hit movies, not assassination movies. I mean, maybe those too, but popular movies. Started academic journals and sponsored conferences the world over. The message of freedom the U.S. projected was a total fabrication. This is the history of this is what they're trying to recreate. This is what they did during the Cold War. They projected that the U.S. was free, Soviet Union not, but also they went after a lot of countries that were not just Soviet Union, not just Soviet bloc. The message of freedom the U.S. projected was a total fabrication. In reality, the black stars it sent around the world to promote the idea that the U.S. was the home of liberty and tolerance were not even allowed to enter many music halls in their home states back then, let alone play in them. Genuine leftists were being ruthlessly purged from public life in the anti-communist, McCarthyist witch hunts. This is the freedom that they were selling around the world using celebrity musicians to do it. This included many of America's finest talents. Singer Paul Robeson and actor Charlie Chaplin had their lives destroyed. Those are two he's listing as having their lives destroyed, not two that were working with the CIA. Had their lives destroyed for supporting socialism. The latter, meaning Charlie Chaplin, spending the last 25 years of his life unable to return to the U.S. under fear of arrest for his political views. Scientist Albert Einstein was mistrusted by authorities and blocked from influential positions because of his socialist organizing. But their treatment was nothing compared to how U.S. authorities attacked black leaders, as you guys well know, such as Malcolm X and the Black Panthers, groups that served as inspiration for Chuck D's career. In 1969, police carried out the murder of Black Panther leader Fred Hampton in Chicago, shooting his bedroom up with like 60 some bullets, I think it was. Maybe I'm low on that number. While he slept, they basically just hosed his bedroom down with bullets. While in 1985, Philadelphia police carried out an airstrike against Black Liberation Organization MOVE. This is known as the MOVE bombing. For those of you who haven't heard of that, you should look it up. Literally, Philadelphia got into helicopters, dropped bombs on a residential building because they didn't like the black organization, the political organization inside that lived in that building. They destroyed an entire residential neighborhood block and killed 11 people, some of them children, I believe. Perhaps even more notable, however, is how the CIA used these goodwill tours of black artists as cover to get close to African leaders in order to carry out assassinations. A case in point is Louis Armstrong's 1960 tour of the Congo. The newly independent country had just elected Patrice Lumumba as president. Young and charismatic, Lumumba was a radical who believed that his nation's immense resources should be used to build a democratic, egalitarian society. That's never good. Never good. If you're in Africa and you want an egalitarian society where the benefits of your nation go to the people in that nation, then you look for the laser pointer on your forehead. So that for CIA Director Alan Dulles, who described him as Africa's Fidel Castro, signed his death warrant. The CIA attached itself to the Jazz Legends Tour, meaning Louis Armstrong, accompanying him around the country and gathering crucial information on Lumumba's whereabouts and security to carry out an assassination. Lumumba was killed a few months later. In 1962, the CIA passed information to the apartheid government in South Africa that led to the arrest and imprisonment of Nelson Mandela for 27 years. No True Flags in the comment section is asking whether Armstrong was working, like, did he know whether he was working with the CIA or not? That is a good question. I do not have that information. You are correct that in some cases, especially with artists and painters and things, some of them knew they were working with the CIA. Like Gloria Steinem has talked publicly in interviews about her work with the CIA. Others, though, it could be like they got funding from a third party, a CIA cutout. They don't realize that their work is being furthered by CIA money. And so sometimes the CIA can promote things without it seeming like it was the CIA or without the people knowing it was them. So I don't know where Louis Armstrong stood on that. Chuck D is aware of the history of the CIA using this program to overthrow countries and assassinate foreign leaders, referencing it in his interview with the Historically podcast. Nevertheless, he insisted, quote, "I ain't got nothing to do with fucking government. Their language is blood, bombs, and bullets." And yet there he is. That was his quote, standing next to one of the most bloodthirsty leaders in America, Antony Blinken, and saying, I'm endorsing you. I'm endorsing this. By standing there, you're endorsing it. You don't stand there smiling and go, hey, I'm part of your program. Now, I'm not saying meeting with him, you're endorsing him. There are people that have met with him that have had very strong disagreements with Antony Blinken or other U.S. officials. So it's not, you could meet these people, you could interview these people and disagree with everything they do. You cannot stand next to them and be part of a program of U.S. influence around the world to further the U.S. empire and not be a part of it. Like, you're a part of it. So he offered a unique justification for working with the power he claimed to be fighting. So here was his justification. Quote, I was accused of being with the State Department of the United States. I am basically telling people, get them symbols and them titles out of your fucking head. That shit is no longer applicable. There are really no such thing as fucking countries and nations. It is technology that has become that. My only thing and my only ulterior motive is hip-hop music, rap, art, culture. That's it. That's my religion and my nation at this point. I trust no governments. They're all the same. But that doesn't actually justify it. You basically just told people to stop asking about it. I mean, you could say saying they're all the same doesn't say they don't exist. I don't know. It's absolutely the bizarrest mental gymnastics to try and justify why he's doing this. Standing next to Chuck D at the White House was Liar Cohen, a man, again, I'm calling him Liar, a man he has long described as his mentor. Cohen has long been one of the most powerful men in the rap business, but with his 2016 appointment as global head of music at YouTube, he became arguably the most important person in the music industry. Cohen was born in New York City to Israeli parents with deep ties to the Zionist paramilitary group, the Haganah. His father, Elisha, was a member of the infamous Harel Brigade during the 1948 Nakba. And most of you know what the Nakba was. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians displaced, thousands murdered just in cold blood, simply for living in a village that Israel now claimed was theirs. Anyway, the Harel Brigade played a pivotal role in the killings of thousands of Palestinians and the expulsion of hundreds of thousands more. This included carrying out biological warfare against the indigenous population. After the 1948 war, he became an officer in the IDF. So that's Liar Cohen's father. Chuck D began working with Cohen began working with Public Enemy in 1980s and immediately began attempting to clean up its image. Cohen successfully lobbied Chuck D to fire Professor Griff from Public Enemy after the latter made anti-Semitic comments. While at Warner Music, he reportedly obstructed the promotion and release of an album by Lupe Fiasco, an artist known for his radical politics and committed support for Palestinian liberation. More recently, in November of last year, and this speaks to my other former colleague, Low Key. So I worked at Min Press for a year, made videos for them, had weekly meetings with them, deciding topics and things. And Low Key was right there at every meeting with me for a year. And he still works with Mint Press, as does Alan McLeod, which is where this article is. And anyway, I bring that up because in November of last year, at the height of interest in Israel's attack on Gaza, some have connected Liar Cohen with YouTube's decision to remove the song, quote, terrorist, by Mint Press's Low Key from the platform after almost 14 years and 5.5 million views. So it'd been up for 14 years, 5.5 million views, and it was taken down right after Israel's genocide began. The incident is a microcosm of how a once politically conscious, revolutionary, and entirely, sorry, I skipped a little more, and so that's why it's switching back to Chuck D. An entirely non-politically correct art form has been defanged and reshaped by corporate forces to make it more palatable to those at the top of society. Chuck D is far from the first old rap legend accused of selling out. Yeah, definitely not. Ice-T found fame by releasing tracks like Cop Killer, but eventually became a cop on Law & Order SVU for like 20 years. I mean, how long has he been on that show? Ice Cube, meanwhile, went from fuck the police and arrest the president to allying himself with Donald Trump. Also, Ice Cube, I believe, has as well played. He's definitely played military. I think he's also played a cop, Ice Cube has. So, yeah, just a couple of 180s from some of these folks. But the difference between, I will say, the difference between Chuck D, and the reason Chuck D is more upsetting than Ice Cube or Ice-T, is that Chuck D continued to be very political. Those guys abandoned their politics like within, a couple of years of putting out those songs. Chuck D kept being, now, I haven't followed everything Chuck D's ever said, very little of it. So I don't know whether it's been a slow softening over the years. He spent years hosting a show on Air America, the kind of largely pro-Democrat network, radio network. I don't know whether there's been a softening of his politics over the years, and now all of a sudden he's standing next to the goddamn genocider-in-chief, Anthony Blinken, shaking hands with him and going, I'm one of these guys. I don't know whether it was a softening or whether this is still a shocking switch for those who have been following his work for years and years. But the United States has never stopped using music and musicians to foment unrest and spark regime change. In 2021, it sponsored, promoted, and attempted a counter-revolution in Cuba led by hip-hop artists that had been funding and promoting. They had been funding and promoting for years. The U.S. government had. Blinken himself has personally used music to advance a political agenda. In May of this year, God, this is horrific, he played a cover of Neil Young's Rockin' in the Free World in front of a host of TV cameras in a Kiev bar, because apparently Blinken plays the guitar. The message he was trying to project was that America stands with Ukraine and for freedom against the authoritarian dictatorship in the Kremlin. What Blinken either forgot or did not care about is that Rockin' in the Free World by Neil Young is a satirical protest song mocking how politicians sing odes to freedom in the U.S. while its people go hungry and sleep on the streets. Go read the lyrics to Rockin' in the Free World, and you will quickly see that it's not about, the U.S. is awesome. We have a long history of that, by the way, in the U.S. of taking songs born in the USA. If you actually listen to those lyrics, about being sent overseas to kill, quote unquote, the yellow man for no reason. And you read the actual lyrics. Born in the USA is not about woohoo USA. You read American Woman. The lyrics. You read the lost verses of Guthrie's "This land is my land, this land is your land." Read the verses. Go read the verses that we've cut out of that song, because they talk about the poor folks and not actually being an open land. So he concludes with, "This is far from YouTube's only connection to the U.S. national security state." Or maybe this isn't quite the conclusion. Its parent company, Google, is essentially a creation of the CIA. Both the CIA and the NSA bankrolled the PhD research of Google's founder, Sergey Brin, and senior CIA officials oversaw the evolution of Google during its pre-launch phase. As late as 2005, the CIA was still a major shareholder in Google. These shares resulted from Google's acquisition of Keyhole Inc., a CIA-backed surveillance firm whose software eventually became Google Earth, the civilian offshoot of spying software the U.S. government uses to surveil and target its friends and enemies. Since then, Google has become a major CIA contractor, securing a cloud services contract worth tens of billions of dollars. Perhaps most alarmingly, as Mint Press found a network of dozens of former CIA agents and officials now working in senior positions at Google and YouTube. Other Mint Press news investigations have found similar networks of ex-CIA agents working in top jobs at Facebook, TikTok, and other platforms. The U.S. national security state is also intimately involved in producing pop culture. The military has produced or co-produced thousands of TV shows and Hollywood movies, including franchises such as Iron Man, The Avengers, Jurassic Park, and Top Gun. Basically, every time you see a U.S. movie that has U.S. military uniforms and vehicles in it, which is a lot of movies. Like you wouldn't think Jurassic Park does, but it does have some U.S. military vehicles in it. Not the original Jurassic Park, but later Jurassic Park movies. Iron Man has military personnel in it. You don't really even think about it that much, but it does. And in order to get access to all of those things, the uniforms, the vehicles, all that stuff, you need full approval of the Pentagon. And the Pentagon can change things in these scripts and often does. So the Pentagon is signing on to basically be a co-producer of these films when you see military personnel and vehicles in them. Thank you, Steve, for the donation. Yes, solidarity. Steve says he saw Chuck D on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I think that's what you're saying. It was pretty concerning. Now I know, heartbreaking. Was he on RBN? I didn't know they had him on recently, but anyway. Thank you so much, Steve, for supporting the show. All right. Wrapping up here in a second. It is in this vein the state that we should see the State Department's recent announcement to partner with musicians. That they are doing this should be no surprise. It's to push U.S. propaganda. What is remarkable, however, is how a musician with such widespread respect as a radical anti-establishment figure would decide to join forces with the very institution he has railed against for decades. Blinken unironically celebrated Chuck D, introducing him as a legendary rapper from Flushing, Queens, who inspired us to fight the power. That's how Blinken introduced him. Does Blinken not realize that he is the very power Public Enemy was rapping about fighting? By choosing to team up with Blinken and join a project openly being pitched as a psyop aimed at regime change, Chuck D has lamentably gone from fighting the power to working for the power. And Chuck D claims that he's not getting paid for it. So if he's not getting paid for it, then you really have no explanation. I mean, if you were getting paid for it, it'd still be gross. You'd still be disgusted, but we'd go, he just went to the money. He's just running for the money. But he's claiming he's not getting paid for it. So then what the fuck are you doing? Honestly. All right. Well, there's one of Alan McLeod's epic deep dives into not just Chuck D completely turning against everything you thought he stood for, but also the history of the U.S. using musicians, using pop culture to push forward propaganda in order to facilitate imperial aims that often end in genocide and the death of millions, such as the global war on terror that's killed 6 million people. It ends in assassinations, coups, putting dictators in power, etc. So it's fun history. Okay. I'm going to go do a special segment, a deep comedic dive, but with a lot of facts in there as well, on the dark history of Elon Musk, where he came from and what he's doing. And that is over at leecamp.net. If you're a member there, you can go watch for free right now. If you're not yet a member, go to leecamp.net, scroll down to become a subscriber, and it'll cost you a whopping $6 a month. And you could sign up watch this segment and then cancel your thing in a month and have spent a whopping $6. I hope you don't do that. I hope you sign up and you really love that you get all the perks and that you get to hang out and that you get sports show and all that stuff. Sure. But you could cancel in a month. Okay. Heading over there right now. For those of you at locals already, hang there. If you're watching this not live, it doesn't really change anything. It's just that when you get to leecamp.net to locals, just find this live stream. The title is about the voter movement that we talked about earlier, votepack.org, and click on that and scroll to the towards the end, and you'll get the special segment. Thank you, Circle Home Services, for the donation. That sounds like a paid ad, but I don't know what Circle Home Services is. But thank you for donating the show and supporting us. Really appreciate it. Circle is saying you love the podcast 2 times the speed. Well, that is how I listen to a lot of podcasts, is on fast forward, and I'm fine with that. You listen however you want to listen. The podcast is called Lee Camp Show, or it's called Moment of Clarity, depending on which platform you're on. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow. I'm here, by the way, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And I'm heading over to locals now. For those of you not on locals, good day. For those of you at locals, please just hang on 1 minute. And I'll keep chatting with you while I fix things here. Just takes a second. There's buffering